Estimates on how many frozen embryonic children exist today in the U.S. vary, with reports ranging from 400,000 to as many as 1.5 million currently being preserved on ice. I spoke with Emma Waters, a research associate in the Richard and Helen DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family at the Heritage Foundation about the ruling in Alabama. She gave us a deeper understanding of its potential impact. Take a look. Emma, thanks for joining me. Let's get right into it. IVF technology has been around for a while. Can you explain how it's impacted society long term?
So the creation of human life outside of the womb, where a sperm fertilizes an egg in a petri dish, has totally upended society's understanding of what it means to procreate human life. So instead of procreation within the bonds of man-woman marriage, now children can be created at will by any adults who simply have the right parts, whether they come from themselves or they come through sperm and egg donation. So the way that we think about children has been radically changed through this process.
Yeah, and what are the ethical implications of that and this technology, especially when we are talking about, couples growing a family?
So when it comes to the ethical concerns with in vitro fertilization, one of the primary things that people cite is the routine destruction of human life. So in a normal in vitro fertilization process, clinicians will create anywhere between 15 to 20 embryos at a time. The goal is then to test these embryos to see if they have any genetic issues, or even if parents are looking for a particular sex, say a boy or a girl, they have the opportunity to choose. Then the embryos that are selected can either be implanted into the intended parents or can be frozen for a later time. Of course, for the embryos who are unwanted, this means that they're routinely destroyed or donated to science, where they're also later destroyed after having inhumane testing done to them.
Yeah, thank you for laying that out, Emma. It's important for people to know exactly what's happening here. And with this Alabama case, a patient somehow gained access to the facility and dropped embryos, grabbed them and dropped them, thus destroying them. But these facilities, as you're mentioning, they destroy embryos all the time. So what was it about this case that caused the court to make this strong statement on the humanity of these little children?
So in this case, the destruction of embryos did not come from the clinic itself or even from the decision of the parents, but from an unauthorized patient from the hospital next door, as you mentioned. So after this took place, the parents involved actually sued both the clinic and the hospital under Alabama's wrongful death of a minor act, because they rightly felt like they had been severely wronged in the killing of their embryonic children due to the negligence of the clinic. So this actually took what has already been happening in the case, but really framed it through the compassionate lens of the parents who now have lost the opportunity to raise these children that they hope to implant one day.
And we've already heard that the University of Alabama at Birmingham Hospital announced that they will not do any more IVF treatments. Emma, do you predict other hospitals will follow suit here?
They potentially could in the coming days, though it's important to note that this ruling does not yet extend to no destruction whatsoever of human life, though the Alabama state legislature could take it that far. Right now, the ruling only says that frozen embryonic children through negligence, if they're destroyed, parents could sue the fertility clinic. So the University of Alabama and other fertility clinics either ceasing treatments or threatening to do so suggests that potentially they know that their own standards of care for embryonic children aren't up to snuff, and maybe they're actually trying to protect themselves ahead of time, or they're just trying to pull a fear tactic, suggesting that somehow the ruling of the justices is actually shutting down in vitro fertilization when that's not actually the case.
I see. And in Louisiana, it's standard that no viable embryos created through IVF are discarded, but no other states besides Louisiana and Alabama really have directives on this. Do you think that this Alabama ruling could have a more national impact?
Oh, it certainly will, and it actually already has. There was a hearing in Florida where they're considering their own wrongful death of a minor child act. And a pro-life advocate actually encouraged the legislature to include an embryonic child in this ruling. So Florida is already working to extend and mimic what Alabama has done, but through the legislature. And I imagine that you'll see other pro-life states do a similar thing, because as Alabama pointed out, this isn't a change in laws, but it's the natural extension of laws to protect not only unborn life in the womb, but unborn life created through in vitro fertilization.
Sure. And Emma, related to this, you've written that in other countries such as Spain, Israel, China, just to name a few, the IVF industry is booming. Talk to me about how the prevalence of this technology globally matters to us here in the U.S.
Yeah, so this technology is a multi-billion-dollar industry reaching, I think, around 22 to 25 billion in 23 alone. So a lot of countries who are struggling to either increase their total fertility rate or come back after severe demographic decline, like China and Hungary in particular, are using these reproductive technologies as a way to hopefully allow adults to have children who otherwise wouldn't be able to do so. The problem, again, with this treatment, though, is first, so far, the widespread use of this technology, even when it's sanctioned by the state and required to be covered under health insurance policies, has not actually resulted in a meaningful increase in children being born in any of those countries, and not in the United States yet. And secondly, because in vitro fertilization trains adults to think about children as an act of the will rather than a gift from God, something that they can decide when to bring into the world and then they can decide when to take out of the world through abortion, you're actually fueling the very mindset that led to demographic decline in the first place. Instead, what we need is a pro-family culture that actually celebrates the unborn child and the life to come to really encourage widespread societal change.
I appreciate your insight on that. And Emma, will there be major changes in the way that these fertility facilities run, do you think? Extra security, added measures in light of this Supreme Court case?
Yes. So in Alabama, the current, at least so far as the ruling is concerned, it will really mean that fertility clinics will need to have heightened security and be sure that none of their embryos are being destroyed through their own negligence, either through unsecured areas or the treatment and storage of the embryos. As the ruling noted by the Chief Justice in the concurring opinion, however, is the Alabama State Legislature will really need to build out the rest of the details. And so I think we have a lot of really exciting conversations coming in Alabama as they decide what the best treatment is for these embryos who are being created, and perhaps even adding in limits to how many embryos are created at a time and potentially limits on what you can test and select for.
Emma, that was a lot to unpack. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and for joining us today. Emma Waters of the Heritage Foundation. While Alabama's Supreme Court decision is not a law, it has already had an impact on access to IVF in the state, with some facilities pausing their services due to concerns that they might get into legal trouble. There is one state in the union that has a specific law banning the destruction of embryos outside the womb. That's Louisiana. We'll keep you updated as the news out of Alabama evolves. In Nebraska, state lawmakers held a hearing late last week on a bill that targets babies with disabilities. LB 1109 would allow babies who are believed to have certain conditions in utero to be killed by abortion up until the age of 22 weeks old. Current Nebraska law bans abortion after 12 weeks. Some of those fetal anomalies include trisomy 13 and trisomy 18, conditions that have a high survival rate after birth when babies are given proper care. Pro-life leaders spoke at the hearing asking lawmakers to oppose this bill.
LB 1109 operates under the idea that a human being's life should be ended because its span may be shorter than the average human lifespan.
The bill, introduced by Nebraska State Senator Merv Reapy, would also remove criminal penalties for these abortions.